He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Here I am in Morocco. I'm busy reading the Bible and the Quran, and I'm trying to figure out what do the sages of the past, the prophets of the past, say about what's happening right now with the coronavirus. Well, check this out. David Icke says that he kind of like calls it problem, reaction, solution. So what's the problem? The problem is we could catch a deadly virus and die. The reaction is what you see all around you, around the world, people running away and getting all panicky and buying all the toilet paper. And what's the solution according to them? Stay at home. But even staying at home is not going to save you. And listening to David Icke is also not going to save you. So according to this here, what it says in the Bible, it says here, I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God is my God, in Him who I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. So in Psalm 91, we're talking about being delivered from a disease, a plague. And plagues or pestilence have been around a long time. God said to Moses, and Moses then said to the Pharaoh, let my people go so that they can go out and serve God. And what's happened now, it's almost like God has actually put this pestilence on earth, allowed it to happen, so that the people of God can be released from the worries of the world and go out and serve Him. So what it is, essentially, is that people have left the church and come back to God. So, in other words, people are like asking the questions, why this virus all of a sudden, and why are all these people dying, and what's happening? David Icke says that the virus is because of 5G, and that it began in Wuhan, because Wuhan was the first place to have 5G in China. That is a complete and utter total lie. 5G also came out in Shanghai and Beijing and other places. I used to live in Hong Kong in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s, and I know the Chinese people very well. And I know that the Communist Party of China has persecuted Christians a lot. There's over 100 million Christians in China. It's persecuted Muslims. The Uyghur Muslims have been persecuted. And they've done a lot of things. And they generally, they're kind of like, we ask ourselves the question, why is this plague coming out of China at this time? In the Quran, they talk about Juj and Majuj, Gog and Magog. In the Revelations, John talks about the pale horse, the fourth seal being opened, and the pale horse is symbolic to death and pestilence. So there's opening of 7 seals. We've already had opening of the first 3 that have happened over the last 2 millennia. But now we're in the 4th seal sort of situation. And you can interpret it that way as well. But let's see if we can make sense of what David Icke says, what Boris Johnson says. Okay, if it is run by a cult, I guarantee you 2 of the most likeliest members of this cult is Prince Charles and Boris Johnson, and both of them got the virus. So there goes your cult theory. Why shoot yourself if you know you could possibly die from it? So, and even if it was to get the disease to look kind of like, it's not us, it's just it really is a disease. We are the 1% elite, but we got it, so it can hit anybody. That's possible too. But what essentially David Icke is saying is that the 5G because we're all electromagnetic beings, the 5G is like a microwave sending out these frequencies that essentially toxify the lungs and cause you to die, which is a whole bunch of nonsense. Then, of course, you can talk about most of the people died had underlying medical conditions. Had they been instructed to test for the virus, and you know, it's kind of like a hoax, basically. The whole thing's a hoax. Well, I guarantee you, after his his sort of paranoid speech today, as I listened to it, and he sounds such a great authority, I guarantee you, there's going to be nutcases out there. They're going to start burning 5G antennas, and that's really what he's basically encouraging. He's saying, I don't want to tell you what to do, but, actually what he's saying, I don't want criminal liability, but think of your children, think of your grandchildren. And what is he saying? Go out there and fucking burn the place down. That's exactly what he's saying. Now, okay, so freedom of speech. Yes, I agree, freedom of speech, but, we also, excuse me, I believe very firmly in freedom of speech, but I don't believe in spreading lies for lies' sake. And David Icke should know better. The guy who said we're run by a bunch of reptiles from another planet or something. He's talking out of his ass, actually. And anybody who believes in him, what he's saying, he's mixing partly truth with partly lie with total lie. So this whole thing about 5G is total nonsense. And if you think it's a worldwide conspiracy, why would Switzerland actually have a referendum and say, okay, we're not going to allow 5G here until we've proven that it's safe medically? So they're not going to roll out 5G in Switzerland because they're taking a common sense approach, saying, we don't know, maybe it's bad, maybe it's not, but let's do some more tests before we roll it out. And that's a sensible approach. Now, if the world government was going to roll out 5G, they would do it, can you shut the window? If they wanted to roll out 5G, they would roll it out for the whole world. And they are doing it already in London. They're doing it in London. They're rolling out, installing the 5G towers, and essentially what's his name, David Icke, is saying is that the frequencies kind of like give you some kind of a disease because it toxifies the cells. Now that theory was also debunked as well, because he kind of cited a guy called some Jewish guy, I can't remember his name now, but a book called The Invisible Rainbow. Now, as everybody knows, the plague has been around for thousands and thousands of years, before radio, before telegram, before the internet, before any of that stuff. So that goes as theory. You can kick it out the window. So it's not. That's a totally false theory. You should know better. Of course, he has the right to spread those lies, spread false information, because it's called freedom of speech. But at the same time, if those lies cause riots and people will get hurt, he will have blood on his hands. I guarantee you. So from that point of view, he should back up what he says with facts. Now, he says that it started in Wuhan because that was the first place they had 5G. Oh, really? They also had 5G in Shanghai and other places, Seoul, Korea. So, and Seoul, Korea is 850 kilometers away from Wuhan. Why didn't it get hit? Why didn't it get hit? If it had 5G, how come it didn't get hit so badly like Italy? And I'll tell you why. because the Chinese are an authoritarian, totalitarian government, and when they say to the people of China, jump, the people of China say, how high? So, they went into lockdown, they sealed off the whole place, and they shut it down, but not before the people from Wuhan flew to Italy. Now, you could say that it was an accident. I don't believe that it came from a fish market. That's not true. I've lived in Hong Kong. I've seen how they eat all these crazy animals. I mean, really sick shit going on there. But nobody got sick. Nobody got sick from this stuff for thousands of years. So why would they all of a sudden get sick? From a bat, the virus passed from the bat to the pangolin to the cat to the human. No, that's nonsense. The most probable origination of this virus, it came from one of 2 or 3 labs near Wuhan. Probably not from the Institute of Virology, because they have very high security protocols, but there's 2 or 3 others that were playing around with the virus, not playing around, but experimenting. And probably one of the workers got contaminated and released it by accident in Wuhan, and the rest is history. We don't know yet. It could be a Chernobyl type of incident, we don't know. But what it says here in Psalm, it says, okay, problem, reaction, solution. And the solution, it says here in Psalm 91, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against stone. Funny enough, that last scripture was used by the devil to tempt Jesus in the desert. And Jesus responded by saying, you should not test the Lord your God. So what it's saying in the psalm is that we should make God our refuge, our protection. We turn to God, and that's what we should be doing in this time. So what has been said now in the spiritual realms, in the heavenly realms, is this plague has been sent unto Egypt because God is saying to his people, get ready. And he's saying to the devil, let my people go, so that they may serve me. Okay, and what's happened here with the Christian church, it's so backslidden, it's so out of touch, it's so not spiritual, that and people just making money out of the name Jesus, and it's lost its kind of integrity. So what's happened is this plague has come onto the planet, and now the people of God all around the world have a chance to turn to God. So I want to encourage you, wherever you are, don't listen to all these conspiracy theories, because it's a nonsense, And David Icke, he lives on the Isle of Wight. I've been on the Isle of Wight. I've lived on the Isle of Wight myself. Small little island, kind of small-mindedness, I should say. And just basically, this is not about questioning everything. From his mindset, this is about projecting fear. And that's what he peddles in. David Icke projects fear and peddles in fear. He wants you to be afraid. But actually, there's nothing to fear. Actually, if you trust in God, there is nothing to fear. So don't be afraid, but also be wise. Believe that this is a time of separation, where the people of God are being separated from the world to get closer to God through the scriptures, through prayers, through examining the heart, It's a time where we can get closer to God and closer to each other. So, and really take stock about what you believe in, who you are, where you're going in life, and if you're doing really what God's will is to do, to be here on the planet, which is to be His hands, His mouth, and everything else. Excuse me. Okay, I'm done. I hope I haven't got. Okay.